Well, good afternoon to you all, and thanks for attending the session. I've got the pleasure to introduce to you project development assistance in the next less than 10 minutes. And it's actually a great tool. It's a great tool considering that probably most of you are working at, say, local, regional level in the energy world, and you see a lot of untapped energy savings around you, and you think, how can we actually get this concretely materialized? And project development is actually there to help you for this. Because apart from triggering concrete investments in energy-related measures, we help you a lot to explore and discover the process of your idea going all the way to having the measures installed in the buildings or transport sector or infrastructure. So it builds a lot of expertise and know-how and skills which you can gain on the way of delivering these projects. Apart from the skills, there's a lot of innovation which you can find, because as you know, it's not easy to trigger energy investment projects. So there's a lot of barriers, a lot of hurdles to overcome on the whole way, be it legal barriers, administrative barriers, market engagement barriers. There are lots of barriers which you have to address when you want to actually deliver energy investment projects. And this PDA will help you to, well, we will pay you actually to encounter these barriers, to overcome these barriers, and then to build this capacity within your organization or within the organizations you're helping to further on after the project be able to trigger more and more investment projects in energy efficiency or sustainable energy in the wider sense. So it's actually a very nice tool to play around a little bit with, to experiment in your area, and to, at the end, of course, trigger the investments. What we're looking for is as well, since we have limited budget available for actions that can be replicable, so that's also something what we want. And of course, as the project title already says, we need to upscale investments. So we want actually that you try to bundle, to aggregate small-sized projects, because in comparison to the ELENA, European Investment Bank facility, we are looking at smaller and medium-sized investments. So you can come to us if you've got a portfolio of 7.5 million and upwards, then you can apply to PDA. And of course, there is also the idea to trigger private investments. So that, again, is also a nice tool to try out, to engage energy service companies, to engage private investors into your energy efficiency projects and try to work out the frameworks there. And of course, we would pay you for the legal assistance, for the financial engineering assistance and all this, so that you can, at the end, have a nice portfolio of projects and that you can trigger the investments at the end. There is, apart from all this capacity building, which is happening usually in our projects, and I repeat, it's an invaluable asset when you go through the journey. There is, of course, at the end, we want that the investments have to be launched. So the energy-related investments have to be launched by the end of the project. And there is a leverage factor of 1 to 15. So for every €1 million of EU support, of grant money, if you like, you have to trigger 15 million euros of energy-related investments. And that you have to prove at the end of the project with appropriate contracts, signed contracts, so that we are ensured that you triggered all the investments needed for achieving the leverage factor. The sectors we are covering are really broad, as you can see. Of course, a main focus is on existing buildings, because that is one of the key areas where energy is consumed in Europe. And there's a lot of need to refurbish existing buildings. But they could be from public to private buildings, condominiums, multifamily buildings, social housing, commercial buildings, tertiary buildings. All sorts of buildings are included here, as well as industry, process energy, or also buildings from industry, SMEs, services. We're also looking at urban transport, where we would like to encourage projects to trigger more sustainable urban transport, so for example, e-mobility, charging stations, that kind of important infrastructure that we need for the energy transition. Existing infrastructures like street lighting, district heating and cooling, waste and water and wastewater infrastructure is also included. We have got a grant of 100% plus 25% overhead, so that's quite lucrative, I would say. That's quite attractive. And the call, it's a little bit to go, but you can already put your heads together to think about ideas, so it gives you a lot of time for that. The call opens on the 5th of March 2020, and the deadline is in the 10th of September 2020. Who do we want in our projects, in our proposals? Again, it's very wide. We have seen a lot of public project promoters over the time, so regional authorities, local authorities, but also private companies. So everybody is welcome to apply to this PDA, Project Development Assistance topic. And again, here the beauty as well is that you can apply with one single entity from one country eligible. So you don't have to find three entities from 3 different countries, but you can actually focus on your territory and involve the right players to trigger the investments. We also are looking for organizational innovation, and my colleague Björn mentioned that innovation can mean a lot of things, and sometimes innovation can already be to transfer some best practice from one country to the other if it doesn't exist there, for example. When we talk about organizational innovation here in PDA, we also talk about the mobilization of the investment program, because often, as I said, it's a cumbersome process to get from the idea to the investment triggered. So you need to bundle certain projects, you need to get the political agreement, you need to get stakeholders engaged, you need to look at the financial engineering. So all this is what we call organizational innovation, basically. Financial engineering would be anything that ranges from traditional financing to more alternative financing. And of course, again, here an emphasis that organizational innovation for us is to try to leverage in private finance, because you know that the public money is not enough for financing the energy transition. So we need to get in some more private finance. And if you read about climate bonds or green bonds, sometimes other means which you read in newspapers, there's a lot of money out there. Investors are actually interested to explore and to invest into energy efficiency more and more. So the money is there. It's about how to package, how to frame, how to set up the framework so that the money can be channeled into these energy efficiency investment projects. Just an example, probably. This is a very classic example of how a PDA project looks like. We had at the time province of Torino together with the regional authority of Piemonte and some city councils that wanted to refurbish some. I can't read it. Yeah, 2 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Too far away. Anyways, so this is a classic project of refurbishing public buildings. They have done a great job with a leverage factor of 1 to 26. As you can see, 12.5 million of energy-related investments triggered, bundling of street lighting and lighting points, and refurbishment of 18 public buildings. It has helped them a lot to build the capacity, and they are still continuing to trigger more energy efficiency investment projects in their territory. Oops, now I'm a little bit too fast. Another one, very quickly, is on the other side. This is actually targeting the residential sector. That's Positiv, which has been which you heard about, and they have managed to tackle the multifamily building sector, which is a very hard to treat sector, I would say, because of the complexity. But they managed so far to renovate over 3,000 apartments in the area of the city of Paris, in the region of Paris. And it's also deeply renovated. So, I mean, the average energy savings they have is almost 50%. So that's quite ambitious. And it's one of our flagship projects. So, I mean, if you are interested in multifamily buildings renovation, then please have a look at this project, which you can Google and you find them very easily. So if you want to apply, just a few tips from my side at the end. It's important to have an adequate starting point. I mean, if you have just the idea and nothing else, then you should probably consider to invest a bit more time to look at what kind of assets you would like to refurbish, to get some political commitment up front and engagement, commitment from the stakeholders, the asset owners basically. Do a baseline, a light baseline inventory, for example. That would be right, because otherwise, if you can define in the proposal already what kind of investment program you will be targeting, that would be very helpful. It's also very important that you clearly show us your concept. So from step to step, from mobilizing the stakeholders, but also how you will do the financial engineering, for example. That's always a hot topic in projects. How do I get the money? How do I finance then the investment program? And issues like procurement, for example. If you procure an ESCO, an energy service company, to deliver the works, that's also quite a big chunk of work. And we like to have always a sufficient level of details on this. Solid impact, of course. I mean, when you show us what your investment program is, I mean, be as concise as you can and as detailed as necessary to explain how you get to the estimations of the energy savings and so on and so forth. And of course, monitoring of the impact is important. And then the asset owners, so the beneficiaries of the investments, should be also involved. They don't have to be involved in the consortium of the proposal. They can also be, or the engagement can also be stipulated in different ways, like letters of support, or in the proposal you can describe the engagement. So that's what I would recommend you from previous experience, what could help with the excellence of your proposal. We have got 42 projects. You can find them all here. They are all diverse in diverse areas, so there are different links to different sets of projects, but they are all PDA projects, if you like. But it was not possible to bring it all into one publication, if you like. And if you want more information, then you'll find more on the funding and tender portal under the topic EE11 with the topic description. We have got also FAQs, which I recommend you to look. If you click on the link there on the funding and tender portal under this topic, you find a summary of FAQs, which are also worthwhile considering if you want to apply. Good. That's from my side.